Just a little bit. We're getting ready for a couple of little launches that we've had all over right in the middle of launch season. You know, we just had 3 games launched last Monday night. So we're out in three games, and then we had GTA 5. I think John Rigatella talked about earlier today, 29 million copies sold already, which is
I think the population of small countries.
I think bigger than the population of small countries. So it was very, very, very powerful. But we're really, the best is yet to come. We have the consoles launched on the 15th, actually for us on the midnight on the 14th and on the 21st, so we'll be doing that. And very exciting. I mean, yesterday EA talked about 10 million consoles launching by the end of March. You figure $500 to $600, that's $5 to $6 billion.
So that kind of gets to one of my key questions. Is clearly you're showing some enthusiasm. You're seeing what your pre-order numbers are like. Is this going to be selling out consistently for every single week? When do you foresee that period of time when someone who's maybe more casually interested in a console can walk into a GameStop or any retailer and actually take one right off the shelf?
And that's a good question because, you know, so we actually just announced today that we've opened up for Xbox One, and we'll probably be closed by the end of today with the allocation that we got. And we are full up on all of our allocation with the PS4 and the Xbox One. And there's 2.2 million people out there still on what we call the first to know list that are waiting just at GameStop. Now, we're going to sell most likely more than anybody, but to answer your question, it's going to be quite some time before we're fully back in stock where you won't have a reservation, you can just walk in and you're not on the first to know list, you don't have a reservation and be able to have it. It's going to be in demand for quite some time.
I mean, looking back to when the Wii came out, and obviously there were some shortages both with the 360 and the PS3, but nothing that came to the level of what the Nintendo Wii was like. I mean, that was almost like a lot of money being left on the table for you guys and for Nintendo. Do you see a similar problem? Do you see issues with manufacturing? Is there a way that supply can meet demand?
Yeah. Well, it's a good question. I mean, they're sure working hard. Sony and Microsoft are sure working hard. And it's unprecedented. We've never had 2 major console launches like this before in our history. But just to give you a statistic, Sony came out and said, hey, we plan on launching 5 million of these globally by the end of March. That would be, I believe, over 40% increase from the PS2 launch. Or PS3 launch, sorry, so the PS4. So you've got a lot more product that's available. And as I shared earlier, our reservations are up significantly, but we are totally filled up on reservations. So strong demand.
So this seems to run a little bit contrary. I think in the past 4 months alone, I've seen more alarmist headlines about, there's a video game crash coming, there's no way the consoles can compete in this world of free-to-play and mobile. And now you're telling me that there's just like insatiable demand for these $400 to $500 systems. And how do you kind of correlate these two very contradictory viewpoints?
I think both are true. I mean, there's been 9 straight quarters of negative growth in the video game sector. So I think what you've seen is you've seen a consistent decline, and I think it's due to lack of innovation. I mean, how many people in the crowd today have a cell phone in your pocket, tablets are invented, that's more than 5 years old? Is anybody? Or is it probably too embarrassed to admit it, I would imagine. But there's nothing that's that old that's around really, right? And yet that's what we're doing with consoles today. There hasn't been a lot of innovation that's come around in the console cycle. So what you're seeing is tremendous innovation. In fact, we think these are going to be the most innovative CE product that's out there in the marketplace. So what you've seen is a cyclical decline in the development cycle, and this new innovation is taking far too long, we believe. And so now that you've got that innovation, you've got all this demand, we think that cycle is going to discontinue. We monitor about 20 to 30 sources, came up with a market model. Our predictions say that next year, in addition to all the growth we're going to get through holiday, we see the market growing 20 to 30% next year, and then 10 to 15% after that. So very, very strong growth, and that's just in the console side of the market.
So when do you think you reach that point of parity with the height of the last generation of PS3 and Xbox 360?
Well, it's hard to tell because they went on for 3-4 years, and then we had, of course, the music in 2008 that just took us to a whole new level, and we had so much innovation that they launched with, and the Wii U is still out there, even though their sales haven't been great since launch. They were great at launch. And they're going to be coming out with new products as well, which will reinvigorate that part of the marketplace as well. So hard to tell when we're going to reach that peak, but we don't see it definitely for the next 2 years.
So you've spoken a lot about innovation, and obviously we're going to get something new and fresh, both with the PlayStation 4 and with an Xbox One. But I have have to wonder how much the software played into the declining, hardware sales for the past few years. But we've also seen, fewer and fewer, big GTA type numbers. Is there a lack of innovation on the software side? If that's why you couldn't see those games move as much.
I think there's been some great innovation on the software side. I mean, GTA 5 is a great example. What you're seeing from Battlefield 4 with Ghosts, and then you've got a lot of new IP that's coming out.
That's Titanfall. Do you see that as essential to kind of further this sense of momentum with the new content?
I do see, and what we've seen, there has been a reduction in the amount of games, but the games that are still being made, those AAA games, they're much bigger than what they used to be. And so, we've got Ghosts coming up, which is going to be another major launch that's taking place. So I think innovation they have really done a lot to maximize this older technology. And it's amazing that technology's lasted for 7-8 years. So now they've got a whole new wave of new technology that's very exciting. I know you've been playing it lately. It's been all your late nights doing it. And it's exciting to us to see what innovation is going to take place. So I think it's going to spark a whole new innovation in software. So you're seeing all this new IP. And like we saw last cycle, it's going to probably take a couple to 3 years to really kind of catch up. But once they do, I mean, it's going to be amazing as they leverage the new technology on the hardware side.
And the $60 price tag on games, this has been a point of discussion. I've actually advocated for something that's a little bit more elastic, depending on what kind of content you're getting with that. Is that something that is it's set in stone? It's going to stay like that going forward? At least for the physical product, if I go to the store, I order it online.
I think it varies. There's some games that come out less, some games that come out more when they have additional content in it. And I think where the variable pricing has actually come into our system is in the downloadable content. So now almost every AAA game that launches has downloadable content, which actually adds an additional price point. So games that launch, no longer do we look at the average selling price at $60. We're typically up around the $80 to $85 level on a game that costs $60 because you have other things you can add to it.
What's funny, I was just reading some of the comments in my Battlefield 4 review that went up yesterday, and you just said that the price point can go higher. Obviously, they really would like to see a price point that goes lower, and there's a lot of, I think, skepticism as to how to regard DLC. That, when you're buying the game at a $60 price point, but really there's this additional cost. They're buying a much more expensive game, or they're under the perception what they're getting is not an inferior product, but like a given product. You're only getting 50 or 60% of what you thought you were getting.
And we think, to go back to the price point, we think it's $60 for 100 plus hours of gameplay. You're going to be hard pressed to find a better entertainment value out there, we think. From a DLC standpoint, I think what is really working well, and Activision did this great and really started this whole process about 3 years ago. When they launched, day and date, they launched a season pass. And they said, okay, we'll give you the map packs a little bit earlier and for a little less money if you buy them all today. You don't have to go back and pick them up when they come out. We'll just automatically download it to you. I think gamers really understood this is an enhancement to the game. And developers are spending a lot of time and energy and money to create that additional content. It's not ready at the time of launch, but they know that it's going to be ready. So I think gamers have really embraced that. And so now what you see is with practically every AAA title that comes out, you're seeing day and date season passes. So for instance, when you had WWE and Assassin's Creed Black Flag and Battlefield 4, I ended up buying DLC at the time that I picked them all up late on Monday night, or actually early Tuesday morning. So I bought 3 pieces of DLC along with it.
But also, how much of an incentive is the idea of you're getting in particular a unique piece of DLC? If I go into GameStop,
sure.
The one that stays on my mind is Splinter Cell Conviction somehow managed to have silent shotgun, which seems contradictory to me.
It does. Right.
But is that really grabbing people's attention? So almost, if it's unique to a particular retailer, I think a lot of people might be skeptical if it has any true sort of value in its implementation in the game.
Yeah. Well, people love unique content. Everyone's so creative, and they want to have something different, and everyone's trying to differentiate. I think what we've done a really nice job of is going out and we understand the game really, really well. We have 26 million Power Rewards customers here in the U.S. and another 5 million across our international segments. And so we're really attuned to the customer. And so we're able to say, hey, what are you looking for? What's fun for you when you buy games? What they said was give you something a little bit different. So the Ghost character, when you're playing Ghost, you can only get it at GameStop, and so we'll download that to you, and you'll be out there in multiplayer with as the ghost character, the namesake of the game. So I think it's been a huge part of the affinity that we've been able to develop with our customers because we listened to them, and that's the main thing that they said. So we went out and we're working with the publishers now 12 to 15 months out to get some of that into the game.
So we haven't spoken about what's supposed to be the great threat to especially your business model, which is free to play, which is mobile. Obviously, you can move in on mobile most effectively by selling the hardware platforms that they can be played on. How much of a threat is it? How much can you sort of co-opt it so that you can kind of move on with this rapidly expanding market?
See, we don't look at it as a threat at all. We see ourselves as a hybrid company because we see the gamer as a hybrid gamer. The gamers are not physical gamers or PC gamers or they only play on their tablet. What we see is that they play on all of those. And so what we want to do is simply become the best place for them to be able to discover the mobile content and be able to afford the mobile content. And that's really what a retailer does. They know their audience very well, and then they bring what their audience wants, what their consumers want, and they bring it in a way that helps them really enjoy the gameplay, and which is really what matters. So let me give you a great example. We are now actually a mobile publisher. So if there's any mobile developers out there who want 300 million visits a year at a place where there are rabid gamers who are willing to spend money, and you want 26 million people who, again, are rabid gamers who want to spend money that we can communicate with, call or go to Congregate.com because we have a $10 million fund that we use to fund publishers and our developers. We're publishing those games. So we took our latest game that we published, Tyrant, for the iOS platform, put it into our stores, talked with every customer that came in, ran it right up the iOS charts, and we're able to monetize that. So it's a wonderful thing. And we see that these gamers they just want a game. And they want a game on mobile devices, which is how we got into the mobile business. They want a game on PC devices, which is why Steam cards in our stores are the fastest growing category that we have. And they want a game on the console.
So how, though, do you sort of separate yourself as the best place to find a mobile game when you're going up against the iOS App Store, when you're going up against Google Play, because it's right there on the mobile device.
Sure.
There's a sense of convenience that can't be denied.
I think the number one frustration that we hear from our customers, and frankly we hear from mobile developers as we interact, is I can't get people to find my game. I really have a great game, but I can't get people to find it. So just like what we do on the physical side, which is help people find the games that they love, we do the exact same thing on the mobile side. So we will work with publishers and developers on the mobile side to say, hey, you want access to all of these great customers who want to spend money, come on in. And with the publishers that we work with, like EA, like Activision, whenever there's a companion app, whenever there's a related game, we're definitely, and when we have this next Monday, we're going to have, on average, a couple hundred people in line at over 4,000 games. I have over 6,000 GameStops around the world. Call of Duty Ghost. What better time to be taking something to them and saying, hey, while you're out here, you got your smartphone, you got your tablet, here's a great game, why don't you go discover that? So those are now we're going to do that with the games that we publish, and so you'll see that. But as we find games that are related to these larger games, these physical games that we have, these huge blockbuster trades, we'd love to be able to help people discover those games, and then we'll help them afford it.
So let's talk about probably the more contentious issue that you guys are ground zero in, and that is the matter of used games.
Sure.
There's been about 3 to 4 different isolated eruptions surrounding this controversy this year. Obviously, that is a huge part of your business model. We've already got the intimations, be it subtle or not, from especially Microsoft, with the idea of digital distribution of games. It would be cutting out the retailer. How do you see that relationship evolving in the next decades? There seems to be a great deal of desire to try to hold on to as much of the profit as possible by just selling directly to the consumer.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting proposition. Again, what we want to do is we want to make games affordable. And so the way that we view what we call the buy-sell trading model is that we believe that we are the most affordable place to buy the games that people want. And so we generate about $1.2 billion of trade credits a year, 70% of which goes straight back into the purchase of a new game. So 14% of the new games that are sold at a GameStop are funded with trade credits. So think what would happen to the entire video game category if we just pulled 14% of the currency out of the marketplace. It would not be a great thing for for the business. And customers want it. I don't know if any of you were at E3 when Jack Tretton stood in front of the world and said, you can play, the PS4 plays these games, and the place just erupted. We weren't surprised because we're talking with the customer all the time. And so that relationship's going to continue. They understand, the platform holders and the publishers actually understand. And to have only 3 or 4 eruptions, we used to have like 100.
Look, as you look at that relationship between GameStop and the consumer, I mean, there's obviously that third prong, which are the creatives, the people making the game. And that's where you're seeing a lot of dissension because they're not seeing the royalties come from that. So while that currency stays in the marketplace, it is never going back to the people that need it for funding and for further support of games.
Well, that's one argument. On the other side, the data would suggest that we sell more new games and are growing in the sale of more of new games. In fact, we've added 700 basis points or 7 market share points in the last 4 years of selling new games. So one would argue that if we're so erosive to selling new games, as most people would tend to argue, you wouldn't see that kind of share gain in new games like we do. So what we see it as is we're actually offering a benefit to the consumer who loves it because they attribute $20 as residual value to every new game that they buy, new physical game that they buy. So part of the issue that as you look at moving digitally, you have to stop and think of the math because we get $12 per game from publishers and the platform holders to sell a game. And yet we drive, in the consumer's mind, a $20 residual value. So it's an interesting proposition if you decide to go digital, and you have to somehow figure out how you're going to deal with that $20 residual value in the minds of the consumers.
Well, I'm curious how you sort of characterize the relationship when it comes to used games now. I don't know if it's really bad, if it's just a little bit tense, but it just seems like without some kind of resolution that it's going to get tenser and tenser, and at the very least, there might be even stronger, more creative efforts to cut a retailer like GameStop out of the equation. I mean, is that a concern? Do you feel that there needs to be some kind of discussion, some kind of open dialogue to try to find a resolution there?
Yeah, and there's ongoing open dialogue. The reason I don't think it's a concern, why I smile, I mean, just look at what we're doing with Microsoft today. I mean, we're working with Microsoft and the publishers to offer people the opportunity to not have to make a decision if they have an Xbox One on the way to buy Battlefield 4 and wait, or do I wait for the Xbox One version? So you can buy in a GameStop today, go in and buy an Xbox 360, Battlefield 4, or Ghost, and then in a couple of weeks or in 3 weeks when you're able to pick up your Xbox One, you can bring that back for $10 and move on. So obviously, that's open dialogue and actually, working together with, and that's collaboration taking place.
Well, I mean, obviously, I can't see both of you slamming your doors or refusing to speak to each other because that would be kind of, well, it wouldn't help.
No, and I think they understand, and clearly at E3, I think everyone saw what we always see, which is the consumer loves the opportunity to get these games at a more affordable price. And so what we want to do is keep it in the ecosystem. By the way, we're also taking now smartphones, tablets, media devices, which nobody's concerned about. So, those are all coming back, and we'll have around $250 million business in that arena as well this year.
So one of the most remarkable things the last time we had this kind of console transition was, despite all the enthusiasm around the 360 and the PS3, the top-selling console was actually the PS2. It had dropped in price eventually got to $99, and it stayed in that position, I think, for about 2 years. Do you foresee the same thing for either the PS3 or the Xbox 360? Does it have that kind of alternate market they can sell to?
Yeah, it's an interesting fact that we sold more PS2s after the launch of PS3 than we did prior to, so it had a lot of legs on it. So I don't see, given the fact that it's been so long since the last innovation, I do believe that we probably won't sell more PS3s after the launch of PS4, but they are going to support both the PS3 and the Xbox 360 for quite some time, and we're going to sell a lot of games, both new and on the pre-owned side for those systems for the next few years.
So I don't know if I can get an answer out of you on this, but say by December 31st, how do you think the split will be between the Xbox One and the PS4?
That's tough. Yeah. Here's my answer. It'll totally depend on how much they give us, because I guarantee you, I won't guarantee. I will tell you that right now, I believe that we're going to sell every single piece that they will give to us, and so at this point, it's just as much as we can get. There's tremendous demand out there for the consoles. And so that's really going to depend on who gets more shipped in.
All right, well, it's a race for manufacturing, I guess. Johnny,
So,
thank you so much for your time.
Great to be here. Thank you very much.